Cool. It's pairing the live stream. For those of y'all just tuning in, comment your favorite game genre. You're like RPGs, puzzle games, simulations. Let us know. All right, we are live. We're super excited to be here today with Laura and Gabriella from General Assembly to bring you a talk about how to make sure you're getting paid fairly and maximize the amount of bread you get from your job. So yeah, I'm gonna share my screen to give you all a brief intro about Design Buddies in case y'all are new. Design Buddies, we are just really a really large design community to create a place where anybody interested in design feels like they belong. We have a lot of workshops, events, talks like this to help y'all level up your career. And we really want to just touch on like real life topics that you might have never been taught in school. And so we host a lot of events like this, have a lot of resources in our Discord community, and you're welcome to connect with us on any of our social media platforms. Check out our website for more info. And yeah, thank you, Jess, for dropping the links in the chat. And we're here with our friendly moderators, Jess and Eric from Design Buddies, which will be helping out today too. And so just some house rules, just to set some norms. Events are recorded, and by attending, you grant consent. If you do not wish to be in any part of the recording, you're welcome to click on the YouTube link, probably on the top right-hand corner, wherever I'm pointing at. And you can watch on YouTube as well. It is going to be recorded and sent out to whatever email you RSVP'd in. And feel free to engage with each other in chat. If Laura says something that y'all really resonate with, feel free to just like comment in chat, chat with each other. And we also have a networking sheet where y'all can share any of your social media links, connect with each other, support each other on your career adventures. And for this event, we'll have Laura's presentation followed by a Q&A, and we'll have a Slido link dropped later in the chat where you can submit any questions you have during our event and upvote each other's questions so we can prioritize which ones. And we also have a group selfie, we always like to do. And we also have some Zoom backgrounds if you wish to join us in style. You can use these at work meetings as well. I definitely use Design Buddies backgrounds in my work meetings. You're welcome to as well. And yeah, tag Design Buddies, tag GA, tag Laura in your social. If you have some takeaways you want to share on social media, I would love to see it. Connect with each other, hop into our Discord and chat with each other and just have fun and be respectful. And thank you very much. I'll hand it over to Gabriella.
Thank you, Grace. I will also share briefly my screen. So we are super thrilled to partner with Design Buddies on this webinar. And thank you, Laura, for speaking today on this webinar and teaching us all how to negotiate our compensation, how to actually maximize it. I will share just a couple of words about GA. I will be very brief to make sure we have enough time for Laura, as she will be guiding us through that. So as I mentioned, my name is Gabriela. I am from GA, General Assembly. And what is General Assembly? We are a technology education company. We are teaching adult digital and technology skills. We are in 50 cities all around the world. And you can join us to learn how to code. You can learn about user experience design, visual design, data analytics, data science, marketing, business, product, and career development. And how we actually do it, you can go with from literally zero experience during 3 months to being a junior software engineer, data scientist, or user experience designer. During these 3 months, you will have very, very intense training. You will have instructor who will be interacting with you on daily basis, whole day via Zoom or in person if you are in some selected cities as New York, San Francisco, Chicago, or DC. You will have classmates, so strong peer support, and you will be working on projects, and you will be learning skills for 3 months. And after 3 months, we help you to find a job in the new area that you study with us. So if you want to become a user experience designer, check it out. On top of this, we have part-time programs and tons of short workshops and webinars, just like this one. So for all this and all these free resources, go to ga.co or ga.co/education. And without further ado, Laura, it's yours.
You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. I think we're right here. And Okay, sorry about that. Let me just hit pause right here. So thank you guys for the introduction, and thank you Design Buddies and GA for letting me come in here and do my talk. I'm super excited to be here. And I hope that you all find that this is really valuable. Just a little bit about me. My name is Laura Leach, and I am a career coach. I focus on both men and women in technology and help with various things, but basically making sure that you're feeling prepared and confident and assured that you're putting your best foot forward, whether that is in your current position or whether that is coming up for you. Do it in various different ways, but my background, I spent years and years and years in technical recruiting, all the way from infrastructure to marketing. I guess the digital marketing stack somewhere is where I kind of ended, and then moved into career coaching. So I want to just kind of get through a few things that I think are really important in this conversation, and that is really understanding really understanding what compensation is all about and what we can and we can't do. So one of the things I think that's really important, and that there's a lot of unknowns about it, is really understanding what a recruiter can and cannot do, and how you can adjust your negotiating approach accordingly. Like, the other thing I think I'll cover is how to improve your current and recent offer, or a structured and systematic and comprehensive approach. And then third, I want you to walk away with some tools to increase your compensation by thousands of dollars per year. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so let's first start with what recruiters can and cannot do. And I think that this is really important because there's a lot of mystery around what they can do. Recruiters do not set the budget for the actual role. The hiring manager does. So what does that mean? Salaries are typically made by the human resources department or compensation analyst. And most often when we think about salary, it's just the base salary, and it doesn't really include like benefits or possible bonus incentives. And why it matters, I think it's important that you really understand that when it comes to salaries, there are salary bands, and that you have a minimum, a median, and a maximum in that salary band. So for example, let's say the band was 80,000 to 100 to 120. We'll just use that as the numbers. So because you have two options to negotiate, and oftentimes people will say you only have one option to negotiate, but you do have two. The first is when you jump on an initial call with a recruiter. And oftentimes a recruiter will ask what your salary, like what you're looking for, and your answer could and should always be, can you share with me what that budget or that range is? So you have an idea of kind of some guardrails that you can work with. Sometimes you will dance around this. But usually recruiters honestly don't want to waste time. And so they will probably give you the lower end of those bands, that 80,000 instead of that 120. They'll say, oh, it's between 80 and 100, because they need one to have room to negotiate, but they also have a fiduciary responsibility to the company to make sure that your salary is within their budget, which is why typically they'll say the lower end of that salary band, so that they can have some negotiating power, right? If you've done your research and you know what the market range is for the role, account for your own costs, your own overhead, you should pretty much have a ballpark figure and be able to have those initial discussions, right? And there's lots of places out there, right? Salary.com and LinkedIn and Comparably, and tons and tons and tons of them. If let's say you were looking for 150,000, which was beyond that, right? You can quickly tell a recruiter, you know what, thank you, but at this point in my career, I'm looking at 150 to make a start. So if it fits within any other your open roles, I'd love to continue the conversation, right? So opening that up and making sure the recruiter knows what you're really looking for, because there may be other open headcount and open roles within the organization that we might want to be qualified for or be considered for. So if you're really looking for, let's say, 120 or close to it, you could say, the 80 to 100 that you could say, if they said, you know what, it's between 80 and 100, You can use really neutral verbiage and language that's saying, you know what, that's a really good start. Can you share with me more about the role and then the total compensation? And what you want to be listening for here is the scope of the role. And is the scope of the role aligned with that compensation that they're offering? Oftentimes you'll find out that they want you to do everything and they only want to pay you to do this. So that's what you're listening for. The second time that you have an opportunity to negotiate is when you actually have an offer in hand. Most people are terrified to negotiate and they think that the offer will be rescinded. I hear a lot of people saying, well, I don't want to be greedy. Just know recruiters cannot rescind your offer. Only the hiring manager or somebody at the company can, the employee and in human resources can. But for the most part, most companies expect you to negotiate. So don't leave money on the table because there is something there. Remember that 80, 100, and a 120, there's money to be had, right? There's also other things to think about. Okay, so sometimes a corporate recruiter will help kind of act as your advocate and help you negotiate. They might know other benefits that a company can offer, like a sign-on bonus, or maybe they understand the stock or the RSU. So you want to listen to them and ask a lot of questions. Now, agency recruiters will almost always negotiate for the highest they can possibly get because they get paid on what you get paid. So the more you make, the more they make, right? Those are the differences between corporate recruiters and agency recruiters. So know who you're talking to. Okay. Okay. So if salary negotiation is part of the job offer process, there's so much fear in asking for money. And I said this earlier, especially for women, right? Today in the US, women only make 81 cents on the dollar, 2021 for every man. So as a coach, I spend a lot of time helping people through the negotiation process because it is a process. When it comes to receiving an offer, almost every company expects you to counter or negotiate. So you don't want to leave the money on the table. And remember, it's not just about this job. Your earnings at this current job will also help determine your salary for the next job. So it's really important that you are negotiating and advocating for yourself. Now, since you only have one shot, once you have the offer in hand in one shot in that negotiation process, it's important that you make sure that you have everything outlined, all of your ask and the why, and really write it out. What are you currently making? What are your expectations? And really outline everything. And then I think it's really important to ask yourself what the market value of the role is. What did you learn about the scope of the role during the interview process? And really, what's going to make you happy? There's some other things that you can negotiate besides that your base salary that can help increase your position, like a sign-on bonus, an annual bonus, equity, like shares or stock options. We used to be able to say remote, but we kind of like had to throw that one out the door. Paid time off. Also think about other things like covered expenses for your home office or transportation. And then, those all are also considered benefits and are really important. And then the other thing I think is really important, if you can't get any of those things, you can always try to negotiate for a higher title, even if it's just an assistant or an associate or a lead or a manager, instead of, whatever, because just having that higher title can help you out in future roles and help you position you for future roles. It also will help you navigate other conversations within the organization. Okay, so we have an offer in hand. We have to create a counter offer. And this is really important, you guys. It's important that when I help negotiate a counter offer, I like to lay out 3 options. Remember the power of 3 and how important it is in marketing. If you don't, definitely go look it up. It is really important. Our little reptilian brains love it. So lay out those 3 options. And so let's say this just happened with a client. So they came in with this offer and we really said, what am I currently making? What was my potential? What am I going to be walking away from? And adding all of those components into this ask. When you lay out these options, the first option is something that you would be really okay with if they gave you. You've thought this through and went, you know what, I would like that. That would be actually really good. The second option is something that you would really want, and you would be like, wow, that would actually be really amazing. Yes, that would be cool. And then the third option is a little ridiculous. It's a little over the top and probably wouldn't be considered. So most likely they will probably throw it out. And what this does is it puts the decision back on the company with the appearance of giving them control. But you've already narrowed down your options. Those options are already narrowed down in your favor. So they'll most often they'll do a combination of number 1 and 2 if you've laid it out properly. And so the idea is to give them the illusion of the power back, but you've already made some choices and you've already said, yes, I call it my yes package. You've already said yes to the first 2 options that you've laid out. Okay. Now, once you are working, like now what, right? So if you're in the role and you want to like move forward and you're thinking, how can I really move forward and what can I do now? A raise is typically once a year, and it's typically, a cost of living increase. Oftentimes it's your bonus or a portion of your bonus, depending on how that is broken out. Oftentimes that's based off of company performance and personal performance. And if the company didn't do well, it's not going to pay it at a whole percentage. So there's things that you could do ahead of time. So one is start talking to your hiring manager or your immediate supervisor now and ask to establish goals to grow a plan together, right? It is, my performance equals compensation and my eye is on the prize, right? I know I need to prove that I've done this work. So you need to prove that you've earned it or that you're willing to do the work and really have tangible goals and outcomes defined so that you can measure that success, you can measure that progress. So make sure that you document everything, and then you want to always have that document with you. So I'll give you some examples. You could look and brainstorm some gaps in your department or come up with some new processes or how we can save time or money or energy, and really come up with not just the problem, but the solution. No one wants you to come up and be like the problem person, right? You want to come up and say, not only have I saw a gap, but I also saw a way that we can fill this gap. And I want to throw my name in the hat because I want to eye on the prize. I want more than an annual increase. And I think it's really important that we take control of that, and also we get noticed for it. So you have to seek consistent feedback on those areas of opportunity. Your goal is to make sure that any of those extra things that you do are getting noticed, and the people who need to see that you're showing up every day and you're taking on this, you're taking your own career roadmap in hand, and your performance, right? Performance is equal to compensation, and you're doing everything that you want to put yourself in line to get that compensation. And it's really important. So in your one-on-ones, in your touch bases, come with that document, hold on to it, put it in your journal book and keep it with you. And hey, I just want to let you know, I've been working on these projects, and I want to let you know that one of the things that we talked about was if I did this, I get this, right? I want to be rewarded for it, right? So taking on additional responsibilities or project outside of your current scope of work, and then show that you've gone above and beyond, because that performance can equal that compensation. And then you can't ask for a promotion or a pay raise until you've done some work. You've got to prove yourself. You've got to go in and prove yourself, right? But so it's only after you've successfully done these projects, like no one wants to pay you up front. They want to pay you at the end, right? So you've got to remember that it's after you've done this work. Like I said, keep a file or journal somewhere and save it along the way. I literally have a folder on my desk, and I have for years, called the Atta Girl file. And it's just like emails that people are like, oh my God, thank you so much for the work that you did. And I just like throw it in there. Things that things that you helped out with, you've achieved or increased profitability, or you just were recognized as a strong performer and somebody just wanted to say thank you. I think it's really important that you keep that folder or journal so that you have this evidence, this empirical evidence that you have done this work and people have noticed. And that way, when you come into a review situation, whether it be at the end of the year or whether it be just sitting down with your manager talking about reviewing the year, you have all of this information that you are ready to talk to them about. So you're calm and you're confident, you're clear, you're really concise in your ask. So it's restating the goals in the past, explain how you achieved those goals, acknowledge like where you came from. This was a mess, and look what I did, right? And kind of remembering that you deserve this raise. You've asked for it. You've done this extra work. It's really important, I think, that you show that you that where it was and where it came to, and then be really specific about your ask, right? I was very specific about, I want to be a high performer. I want to make sure that I get to a senior manager level. I want to be a director, whatever that may be. These are the things that we've been talking about. And here's some of the things that I've done in the past. And I think that they'll really support this next money position, whatever it may be. And then the other thing I think is really important and we don't talk about is really anticipating somebody saying no, right? Like what they're going to say, you know what? No, we can't do that. And you're like, but we've been talking about this the whole time. So be prepared to advocate for, or any kind of counter arguments, or advocate for any objections that they may have. And that's why I say making sure that you have been documenting this along the way, but also talking about it along the way. Every time that you get a chance to be visible, to write it down, to bring it up in conversation, and then be able to have that open conversation with your boss or your manager. All right, that was a lot. I know that I ran through that as quickly as I typically do. But I do want to open it up for Q&A. And I know that there's a lot of people on the line. So I'm just going to do the last slide, and I'll leave it here. It's just the best way to get in touch with me. And then I think we put all of it in the chat as well to get, I think all of this is in there besides the strategy session, which is fine. That's on that website. So if we put this in the chat, then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Is that okay, Grace?
Yeah, that's fine. Feel free to just like directly copy pasta because we don't have the whole link. But yeah, feel free to just put it in our doc.
Okay. Yep. I'll put it in there, and I'm just gonna stop share here.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Great tips shared. And it's just like stuff that I've never really learned in school as well. And I know we have a lot of questions. I definitely had a lot of these similar questions as our buddy has when I was negotiating for the first time. And I'm going to go through our list on Slido. And we have some questions from YouTube as well. So I'm going to try to like lump them in. Yeah, so we're going to go with the top upvoted one is, can you give us an example of how you would phrase a counter offer based on the 3 options? So this is assuming it's meaning like the base salary, the stock options, like I guess to rephrase it, like how would you prioritize which ones to negotiate first? And you also mentioned like role title, role level, and like work from home or like commuting, and all these little things you can negotiate with. I guess like how would you prioritize them?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. Well, first you need to figure out like prioritizing for yourself, right? Like what's really important to you. Is the money, is the bonus, is the RSUs, like are you in the short game, are you in the long game? Like that's really something that's personal, right? And how do you want to prioritize it? And I think some of that becomes career mapping. And then in the ask, I think it's something like, it's really one, with grace, right? And appreciation and gratitude, right? Like, thank you for the offer and the opportunity. I look forward to working and growing with the company. And then this is kind of like, after reviewing the offer and the benefits, I want to be fully transparent regarding the numbers, my total compensation, and I'm scheduled to receive a bonus raise, blah, blah, blah. And then I may have this much from an equity perspective. And so based off of these numbers, I think we're a little off of the salary. And I'd like to know if there's any flexibility in closing that gap and bringing me closer to a similar compensation range. So there's specific verbiage that you can go through and ask, but I think what it is here's some options that I came up with, and I'd like to propose the following, and then those kind of three options. So it's your salary, is it a sign-on, is it shares, depending on what their offer is, I think is one way that you can see it. It really is laying it out, right? I like to put it on a sheet and just, here's the title, here's the current compensation, and what's the deficit, and where do I want to get to, and what's that ask, but be really specific in your language about, here's the three options that I propose.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Always start with like, thank you so much for the opportunity,
Yes.
and just kind of making them feel good. Yeah. Gratitude, making them feel good and good headspace. And then you go for your ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Another question is, what if you're completely new to the industry and have little to no experience? Do you still have the room, even the right to negotiate? And I feel like this comes down to like going on like things like Glassdoor and seeing what people are getting paid for. But just wondering, if someone is like their first job out of college or first internship, how would they go about that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Then I think it becomes, is there a way, if we're negotiating, I think it's important that you can, hey, I don't have a lot of experience. I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. But I want to let you know that my eye is on the prize, right? And if I'm going to come in as an associate, what is it going to take for me to get to be an assistant or the next level? Because I really want that defined. And so I think that's where it's not negotiating, it's just setting expectations and then going and making sure that you're going to meet those expectations. So there may not be a lot of wiggle room when you're coming from an internship into a full-time position, or there may be. I mean, I know there are some companies out there that are doing sign-on bonuses for people with no experience, just out of the gate. So it really is supply and demand. It's it does happen that way. It's a matter of like, do you have a certain experience or quality or skill that is so needed that it's worth giving you a chunk of money to keep you here or to entice you to be here, right? In those situations, there's a lot more opportunity to negotiate for hard cash. Really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So remember to negotiate, everyone. Just because you might be an intern or entry level doesn't matter. Yeah. And I always ask for like, I guess like I always aim for the high bar and ask like, how can we work together to get there, and just like see what they say and go from there as well. Yeah. Oh, and as were these companies doing sign-up balls, people with no experience? I guess it really depends on supply and demand, as what Laura mentioned. Yeah, and it's also answered next question, fresh graduates. Anyone has the power to negotiate.
Yep.
Yeah. So none of us asked, what would you usually target for a counter, base salary or stock package? But I guess it really, really depends on how long you're planning to stay at the company.
Yeah, I think it depends on a lot of factors, right? If you're negotiating for a base salary now, then you know that it's very rare that you're going to take less later. So it's only going to position you more. If it's RSUs or pre-IPO stock, that's the dice that you're going to roll and gamble with. If it's actual stock, or you're starting to put some what we call long-term earnings in, or LTI, long-term investment, into like a 401k, and you're like, oh my God, they do a company match at $2 for whatever, then you can kind of think about, oh, I would love to be able to get a sign-on bonus so that I can go and I can dump some of that money in there, and start really building up some earnings. So, financially, it's a matter of, where you're at from an investment perspective, right? Like, if you're going to take a cash hit up front. So just so you all know behind the scenes, when you get a sign-on bonus, it typically is paid at a different salary bracket or a percentage of the tax bracket. It's usually almost at 45 to 47%. It's shocking. So you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get a $15,000 sign-on bonus. You're like, oh, I just got 7. What happened there? Right. And it usually comes at the second paycheck after you start. So just keep that in mind. So,
yeah, sign-on bonuses get really, really taxed. So don't
hard.
be surprised.
Yeah. It's always shocking.
Yeah. So I try to negotiate for like base and stock, because those don't get at least taxed like too heavily. I guess it really depends on where you live too.
Yeah, it also is also your like what your income is, but think about this: if you get more in a salary, they're never going to take that away from you, right? And the sign-on bonus is a one-time event. That's it. You don't get another sign-on bonus the next year. So I always say take the salary up front.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. This is Mala said, or Yumi said, sign-on bonus is no experience. Yeah, definitely. Like I actually also got a sign-on bonus with no experience too, just to validate your point. So yeah, like even if y'all are getting your first internship, just ask for it. Like as Laura mentioned, they can't take away your offer just because you asked to negotiate. Yeah. And sometimes they expect you to stand up. It shows that you're standing up for yourself as well.
That's right.
Yeah. Next question is, what if you think you already got a great offer? Should you ask for more?
I think you should always negotiate or try to counter offer, even if it's little, even if it's like, oh, well, I'm going to be moving and my cost of moving is, whatever, like U-Haul. It's even if it's $5,000, right? Which will only be about 2,700, but still, even if it's like, is there more RSUs, or is there more stock, or can we change the percentage, or can I get my home office? Can I expense my home office or my equipment that I'm using for my home office? So lots of times there's other little tangibles that we can that are becoming more attractive as ways that we can entice people to come. And so those things are negotiable.
Yeah, there's even like some places have like education assistance that help you pay for student loans. So there's all like fitness benefits. Yeah. There's all these little things you can negotiate as well. Yeah. Next question is, how do you negotiate when you apply for a small company when the creative supervisor / CEO are personally part of the compensation process? Any specific tips?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, I think you would advocate for yourself in the same way that you would advocate if it was a larger organization. And whether it's your boss and your HR person are all in one and the same in this, if it's such a small company, I think it's building the confidence and that you need to have to advocate for yourself. And so it shouldn't matter what the audience is, the ask should still be the same. You're advocating for you, not on behalf of them. Remember, they're a business. And at the end of every day, they don't think about like, I should be giving them like $10 more at the paycheck. It doesn't happen, right? They're not thinking that way, but that $10 more a paycheck could mean something to you, right? And so you still have to kind of advocate for yourself no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. Like don't get intimidated just because it's like a CEO. They can't take away your offer. So
no. I think if as long as you walk in with like, I always say humble, happy, humble and hungry, right? You're hungry to do more. You want to be a high performer. You want to show that you can prove yourself. You're humble enough to know where you're coming from, right? And you have gratitude and grace around this ask because you want to become a partner and you want to become part of their, employment family. And I think it's the delivery and how and also honestly practice. Oftentimes we're not comfortable with the words that come out of our mouth because we've never done that before. So we're like, ooh, that didn't sound good. I'm not sure if I like the way that sounds, but the more we practice, the more comfortable we'll get.
Yeah, I see some really interesting questions submitted on Zoom and on Slido. I'm trying to get to as many as we can. So Helene asked, I have many recruiters tell me what their cap is for salary. If we were to get an offer, is it really their cap or should I try to negotiate even more, even though they said it's the only budget they can handle?
Yeah. Then that's when I think you look at what are the other things that you can negotiate. if their salary is capped, then they're being really like, I don't have time to mess around. You either are in, you want to proceed forward, or you don't want to proceed forward. But there are ways to like, is there any wiggle room there? No. Okay. Is there any other kind of, could I get my expenses reimbursed? I know some companies are providing home food services for remote workers because they can't provide, Friday lunches anymore. I mean, people are getting really creative with being having a remote workforce. So there are other things that you could start negotiating around.
Yeah, definitely. Next question from G is, what are some words and tones to avoid that would cause a conversation to end during negotiation? Or to rephrase it, what are some red flags as a recruiter that you've personally seen with candidates?
Pushy, I think it's people who aren't gracious. I think it's people who are feel like they're entitled. I think it's people who don't understand that you do have to prove yourself too. So if they can back up their ask, and then instead of like, oh, then it's, what, then I just walk away. I have rescinded in all of the years that I recruited. I rescinded an offer once, and that was just because their background didn't clear.
Oh,
yeah. So
yeah.
that happened. That happened, but that was one time. But that I've never, ever, ever rescinded an offer. I did go around where somebody just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, but we needed them, we loved them, and we bowed down. We did. Yeah. So
I guess it really, really depends on the situation. If they're really, really desperate, then they're probably.
Yeah, we created 2 VPs with the same title. Like, that never really happens in an organization when there's usually a very strict hierarchy. But yeah, it worked. I mean,
wow.
We pushed.
Yeah, congrats for the hours and push for it. Yeah, kind of going on their side. What Yoon asked in the chat, can you share some success stories with your past clients in the recent 12 months, or maybe some like success stories, like I guess like maybe an example of a candidate you worked with that was able to negotiate like much higher, and like what evidence did they pull in, how did they make their ask?
Oh my gosh, I have tons of them. I don't know if I have them all at the tip of my fingers. If you go onto Career Sprout, or if you look on Career Sprout's Instagram account, you will see a lot of them. But just recently, I got this one that was, I sat down and pulled my, pulled up my precious salary, and my new one is 30,500 more than I was making before. And it was an official UX designer role. Yeah. More than her GA grad. She was a GA grad. There you go. She was a General Assembly grad. I don't know what this one was, but she got an offer from Dropbox, which was like her dream job. But there are all kinds of case studies in the Career Sprout. Instagram is probably where a lot of them would be. And then also on the Career Sprout website, we'll have a ton of those case studies that will really show. And usually they're like they're screenshots of our text messages from people. So they're that, right? And there's some video as well. And there's also a YouTube that has video testimonials from people that have gone through the Career Sprout program and GA program.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. And their question kind of segues into the job, is when you find out you're underpaid, how do you advocate for yourself in this situation? Because I know like salary sharing, it's still like a bit of a taboo topic. Like I was told to not share my salary. And so like, I guess for those like wanting to, I guess the question before that question is, how do you know if you're underpaid for anyone like working right now?
Yeah. There are pay scale comparably salary.com. There's FYI.isa. There's a ton of them. I might be able to drop this in the chat. That are out there, right? That you can go and get information and start looking around. and to see if you are underpaid. It is really hard to right size your salary in an environment that isn't, this is really good. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull this out for you guys, because it's a pretty good little list and I can just drop it in chat. It's really hard to right size people, but if you come with the right information, I think it will, you've got to come with data to back it up, right? And then you also have to be able to, say the why should we be giving you, why should we be right sizing you? So you've got to be able to advocate for yourself. And I think that goes with anything. And that is, you need to have all that data. What have you done? Here's what I'm making. Here's all the data that I pulled. Here's the kind of average salaries, but here's also some of the work that I've also done. And I want to take that into consideration. And I think it's really important for me. I would feel better about myself if I knew that I was being right sized, because I just found out that, so-and-so and so-and-so aren't making way more than me. But I will tell you a true story. When you are in HR, you get a chance to like peek into everyone's salary because you have behind the scenes in the tool. So you're allowed, we're not supposed to, but you have access to it. I did find out that one of my colleagues was making more than I was making. So I went to my boss and I was like, what the heck? Like, why would you do that? And she was like, you didn't negotiate. So you left money on the table. Like, it's, as a human resource employee, it's your fiduciary responsibility to keep that number as low as possible. I didn't negotiate for myself. And I was a negotiator as a recruiter. I didn't negotiate for myself because I assumed that I was going to be making it up in commission. So I was like, I'll just make it up in commission, not thinking anything of it. And it wasn't that much, but it was enough that it was a considerable amount. I mean, I probably could have gotten a bigger apartment, it was enough that I probably could have made some significant changes in my life. So it was really hard. They did not want to right size me because there was opportunity to make money elsewhere. I have seen in bigger corporations, when people bring the right information, they can go back and try to right size that person when it comes to either an annual increase, or sometimes they can do a mid-year increase.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Always negotiate, everyone, and bring in the data, keep it objective, and advocate for your own value to the company as well, like what projects you're working on, everything too.
That's right.
So Javi asked a really interesting question: is, when negotiating, aside from data or case studies, is it effective for the applicant to express how passionate they are for the role, or is it focused on like hard data only?
Yeah, I mean, everyone is passionate. It's like, honestly, it's the first thing I will tell you to take off your resumes. So, but we're not talking about resumes today, but it is. Everyone's passionate about what we do. Like, that's what drives us, right? I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, but I'm not going to write it because, one, it's not discoverable, and two, it's not verifiable. It is only in my actions. So when saying that you are passionate about something is not going to get people to pay you more. I think it's, around like, this is what I can do. This is the impact that I can make. This is the value that I can bring to the table. Here's where I've done it in the past, or here's my thoughts around how I can do it moving forward, right? It's around your impact and your value. You've got to be able to articulate the value that you can provide, or the impact that you can make. And then I think all of a sudden that conversation shifts and changes a little bit.
Yeah, focus on impact and value. And also, Hannah's shared in the chat, we do have a channel on our Discord called FAQ New to Design, where you'll have even more salary negotiation resources. I personally read through all the articles when I was negotiating, and it was helpful. So thanks for sharing, Hannah. So I'm gonna go through some more questions. We have about 13 minutes left. There's some repeat questions as well. So I guess you mentioned some other, would you ever negotiate? I know you mentioned negotiating with recruiter kind of like when in the initial call and your offer call, but how about negotiating with your hiring manager? Or is negotiation always done with the recruiter?
Oh, that's a good question. I said that oftentimes people will say, oh, you only have one time to negotiate. And I just don't believe that that's true. I think there are two times. It's one, when you do talk to the recruiter or the initial person that's screening you, because that's the time that you can set the tone and set the bar. And then the second time is when you actually have an offer in hand. Most people will say you have nothing to negotiate until you have the offer, but I do believe that you get to set the precedence ahead of time. It doesn't always have to be the recruiter, and sometimes it is the hiring manager, and sometimes it is a person in human resources that you've never talked to before. It really is the dynamics of the organization. As a recruiter, I used to get really kind of annoyed that the hiring manager would want to deliver the offer, because I was like, you're taking the wind out of my sail. Like, this is my finale. Like, what are you doing? I did all this work. But some hiring managers will want to give the offer because they do have the power to negotiate. It's coming out of their budget. So oftentimes you could negotiate with them, where the recruiter we don't have control of that budget. It literally comes out of that headcount comes out of the hiring manager's budget. So if there is a time to negotiate and you are on the phone with the hiring manager and they're delivering you the offer, then yes, you can definitely negotiate with them. And I highly recommend it, because they have the immediate power, where a recruiter would have to go back and ask and then go back and blah, and then so back and forth.
Yep, I negotiated with my
Great
hiring
question.
manager, 100% successful. So
Yeah.
I recommend that as well.
Mhm.
Wow, a lot of questions. So A asks, do you give your desired salary during the first stage of the HR screening call, or should I keep it vague until we get an offer in? I've also heard another story. This also kind of leads into kind of my questions as well, is I heard sometimes companies, they ask for the candidate's salary so they can lowball them. In a way, I don't know, it sounds really bad, but I guess how would you, as a candidate, when the recruiter asks you, what's your desired salary? What's the best way to answer?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier in the slide, and that is, you could give a range, or you could turn back and say, can you share with me what the range is or the budget is for this role? And you could, that should be your immediate ask. And if they push back and say, look, I need to know what you're looking for, they're not allowed to ask your past history, and that is in almost every state in the US. I still think there are some states where it's allowed, but it is illegal to ask your salary history. It is also legal. It is illegal for them not to share it. So if you say, can you share with me what that range is? And they say, no, I can't. Not that you can say, well, that's illegal, because then they'll just hang up on you and find someone else. But you can push back and say, hey, I really think it's important, because I need to get an idea of what the range is. I want to take a lot of components into consideration before we get there. And I don't want to get lowballed. Just be honest. I don't want to throw out a number and then get pinned to it. What's really important to me is finding out about the scope of the role, what am I going to be doing? What is the impact that I'm going to be making? So if you could if at all possible, go back and say, can you share with it for me to go back in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Sometimes it's good to just be blunt. I don't want to be lowballed. And yeah,
be transparent. Yeah.
Cool. We have some repeat questions on Slido and Zoom, so I'm trying to just pick a couple and try to combine a few questions for the last few minutes we have. Okay. So another interesting question by Alice is, how can you best approach a conversation about salary with a coworker of the same or lower hierarchy as you if they ask you about it first? Oh, this actually happened to me. I guess if a coworker asks for your salary, should you share it? I know it's I guess in some companies could be a taboo subject, and maybe because if they're in their design, not in HR, and they want to see, they're asking the coworker the same hierarchy to see if they're each of them being paid fairly. How would you approach that conversation?
Yeah. You know what? I'm 100% for I think transparency should happen across the board. One of the links that I think I sent you, or maybe it wasn't in that link that I sent you, but there is a huge document that was going around for a few years, and it had all these women in technology, their salary, their location, and some of the benefits and compensation around it. I really think it's important that we are transparent. So as an employee, I would say, this is how much I'm making. How much are you making? And why is it different? I would want to know. It will continue to close the pay gap between men and women. The more we can be transparent about it. Lots of companies in the Bay Area came out and said that we're going to be super transparent. And this is what these are the salaries that we give for a manager, senior manager. Obviously they make it up in like discretionary bonuses and the other pieces of it, but they did try to come and like level the playing field a little bit. I think the more conversations we have around it, the more women won't be making 81 cents on the dollar. So
I agree. We should talk about salary, everyone, with the coworkers.
it's like,
Tomorrow, I give you all the action item. Talk with the coworker and ask like, hey, in order for us to both make sure you're getting paid fairly, what's your salary? And I'll share mine if you share yours, and we can just make sure. So action item for all y'all buddies this week, tomorrow, ask your coworkers. Another question with Lauren, and is I recently interviewed with the company and boxed myself into a salary range. After the call, I realized I should have given a higher number. Is it okay to go back and give a new desired salary? If so, how does one go about addressing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It happens all the time. So going back and having an opportunity to say, hey, before we go any further, I just realized that everything that you told me about the job outside of the job description, was more than I thought was going to be, the function of the job. Based off of that, or even based off of like the 4 or 5 people that I've talked to within the organization, or based off of some of the information that I came to understand about the role, I definitely think that it's not market rate. And I think it would be really, I'd be doing myself a disservice to take a job that is going to not be paying me what it should be paying me. It would be a disservice to you, it would be disservice to me. And so is there any wiggle room? Can we readdress this? Because I was not aware of what your ask was. And I think that happens. Like we pick up the phone and we talk to a recruiter without having like coming prepared to the conversation, doing our homework, understanding what market rate is, because we're like, a recruiter called me, I want to talk to them. Right. And then we go, and then we do feel like that happens. It's 100% okay to come back, 100%. And I highly recommend you do, especially if you have some information around why you think, after I learned about this role, this is not the scope of the role is different. And I think that's valid.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I'm gonna try to do like 2 or 3 more questions. And another question is, my fears of negotiating a higher pay with a new company is whether or not I would offend them or leave them a bad impression if the high number is offensive. I actually did that with a freelance with a client. I was like, I negotiated probably like $100, like, well, it was for a small project. And yeah, I guess like, would it be offensive to like say too high of a number? And like, how would you know that too high is too high?
How do they know what you're making right now? No one knows
True.
what you're making right now. Why would you think it's offensive? If it's offensive to you, then it's not going to feel comfortable coming out of your mouth. But no one knows what you're making now. If you could be making $60,000 a year and ask for 120, and you're like, oh my God, but they don't know that. They don't know what you're making. They can't find out. There's no way for them to verify your salary. You can say whatever you want to say. If you think it's offensive, then that's because you're uncomfortable and you're not comfortable having those words come out of your mouth, or you don't feel like you're worthy of it, and you feel like you are taking advantage of that situation. Get to a number that you're comfortable with, that you're comfortable of the ask. But if you think it's offensive, then that's you. That's on you. That's not on them. They have no idea what they're looking at.
Yeah, but y'all deserve more. Like, ask for more, everyone.
That's right. You are worthy. That's right.
Yeah,
you are worthy, and no one knows what you're making. No one also knows what your financial overhead is, right? No one knows any of those components, nor can they ask, nor is it their business.
Yeah, they're illegal. Like in most states, you search up the law. If they ask you, point to that law. You
could also say, you know what? If I tell you what I was making, I was underpaid, and I'm going to constantly get underpaid. I have to get myself to right size myself to market range. If I keep saying what I'm actually making, I'm never going to make any more, because people are always going to pay me less than what I'm worth. So I have to advocate for more.
Yeah, just being transparent that way. Interesting question is, I know you talked about being transparent, and what if the question from Omar is, what if the company forbids you to talk about salary?
And if that's a company policy, I would wonder why.
Yeah, it's kind of sus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a red flag to me. To me, that's a red
Yeah.
flag. I mean, I would be questioning like, why, you know, why can't we talk about it openly? Why does it have to be so secretive? Why is it so lopsided that we have to talk about it? We can't talk about it.
Yeah, definitely something is suspicious there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We're almost at time. We're gonna do a group photo. If you're free to turn on your camera, everyone, if you want. We also have some Design Buddy Zoom backgrounds that y'all can use as well. And if you don't want to be in our photo, or if you don't want to turn your camera on, you can react. That will show up as well. So I'm gonna unpin everyone, and we might have some time. Actually, no, that was like most of our questions that we got through. So awesome. Yeah. So feel free to turn on your camera. I'm gonna remove the pin so we can all see each other. So we're gonna do a group photo in a way for our Instagram story. I'm gonna count down. If you don't want to, oh, I love the money emoji. If you don't want to be in our group photo, or if you don't want to turn on your camera, you can just react and it will be in there as well. So I'll count down a few 10 seconds, and y'all can turn your camera. Feel free to grab any object you want. I have Fluffle with me right here. Oh my god, I love that strawberry. Yeah, I'm gonna count down and take our photo. It's gonna be a static one first and then away for our Instagram story like we do at every Design Buddies event. So yeah, or react. So keep reacting because I'm gonna count down. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. I'm gonna take a couple and choose the one everyone looks the best in. All right. I love all the plushies. I'm gonna do a video for Instagram stories. So feel free to wave, dance, dab. This is just something you like to do, unique to Design Buddies to make ourselves stand out. All right. Ready, set, wave.
Ooh.
Hello, buddies. We just finished a wonderful talk on getting paid fairly and how to maximize your compensation with Laura. Make sure to check out the recording on our YouTube channel. Awesome. Cool. So we are right on time. And thank you all so much for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Laura. I'll send our email with all the recording, and you can see the recording if you missed any part of it in the beginning. You can see the recording on our YouTube channel at Design Buddies. It'll probably just be first few results if you just search it. And with that, Laura, is there any other final tips that you'd like to share with our buddies today about negotiating compensation that you didn't get to share yet today?
Oh my goodness. I think we covered a lot. I would just say, just be really an advocate for yourself, do your homework, do your research, talk a lot, ask around. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or wherever, any of my other platforms. I'm happy to chat with you. And yeah, I mean, just know that you're worthy. You are worthy, right? And we have to advocate for ourselves, both men and women. But the more that we're honest about what our worth is, the more that we're going to continue to push ourselves forward.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Definitely everybody's worthy. Like, ask for more. Don't ever feel like you're bothering anyone. Just be confident. Worst thing that happens, say no. And they can't rescind your offer. Yeah. No one gets harmed. They just say no. And move on from there.
They're like, you're crazy. You're gonna be the crazy one. Oh no. Okay. Great.
Yeah,
good. Everyone needs
exactly. We love crazy people.
Right? Absolutely.
One time I asked for once I asked for $1,000 for like a small sticker. And I think that I kind of pushed the boundaries. I went all out to the moon. And that was too much. And that's how I learned my range. But anyways, be bold and be like me. Ask for $1,000 for something small and see what you do. Because it was something for a business. So I was like, okay, they probably make money off my design. So yeah. And just be bold and don't feel if people kind of treat you weirdly because you ask for more money, then they're not the right people for you. You don't live life to please everyone. Anyways, on that note, I'm gonna live stream. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate y'all for coming, and really glad to hear that y'all learned a lot from this, and hope y'all ask your peers what your salary is. That's your homework for next week or tomorrow. So everyone watching on YouTube, ask your peers what your salary is for the benefit of both of you.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me. This has been
Yeah, thanks for
amazing.
being on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All the buddies in the chat